So the other thing is that like when you see this playing out, you see the astronomical amounts of money not only is the Premier League spending, but also relative to La Liga and also the other leagues. It's a crazy gap, right? And so what I think the concern is, rightfully so, and I know like there's arguments against what I'm saying. Like if you look at no matter how much Premier League spends, it does seem like the Spanish teams are dominating the Champions League and Europa League, and by that I mean really Real Madrid and Sevilla are dominating those two competitions. It's not like the entire league is dominating those competitions, but it's true that Real Madrid have been competitive and they will continue to be probably. But I think this is where the concern kicks in, is if the Premier League just runs away and becomes the league. Like Premier League just becomes like the NBA of football. Like that's the league for basketball. Everyone goes there, United States. You go and you win the NBA, you're crowned quote unquote champions of the world. You get a trophy that says world champions. And that's what I think the concern is. The Premier League, we don't want the Premier League to become that. And I know there's a lot of plenty of people who are anti-Super League. I am among you, so relax. But I will say I am in favor of a reform and a Super League, but just not the one that is presented, as I've said many times. I think Florentino is seeing this play out, and he's saying, "This if there's going to be an NBA of this sport, I'm going to create it, and I want to be a part of it." And again, it's a really difficult thing to do, and it's easier said than done. But I think that's what the mindset is now. You don't want to lose grip of this. You don't want this to get out of hand, and you're just excluded from this massive league. How far we are away from that, I'm not sure, because again, teams like Real Madrid have continued to be competitive, as well as the Spanish teams in the Europa League. But I just don't know how long it lasts.
Yeah, and I think Real Madrid have been able to remain competitive for a lot of the reasons we've talked about before, kind of the youth policy, market opportunities. And one of the things that I don't know if we've touched on as much, but I did kind of highlight in this article, was another big reason for that is they're doing their business much quicker now. And like they're getting deals signed really efficiently at the beginning of the market, or as soon as the market opportunity arrives, they close that deal as quick as possible, because they don't want to get into a situation where it's a bidding war, or where all these big Premier League clubs or PSG can come into the fold and just start raising the stakes and raising the bonus fee, the transfer fee, the salaries. And so I think the Real Madrid board, Florentino Perez, Juni Calafat, that whole team have done a really good job in, one, like quickly identifying the targets, kind of putting in place, like giving the sales pitch, which from what we've understood, or I saw a thread on Twitter once from, I don't know who this guy was, but he may or may not have connections to Real Madrid, but basically outlined like all the things Real Madrid do to convince players of what their career would be like if they were to sign for the club, and show them kind of how their brand exposure would just multiply 100-fold, how their career would be better off no matter what. Like even if it doesn't go well at Real Madrid, they still have ABCY or ABCDE option afterwards. They kind of outline a career progression and all these different things, like really give them a phenomenal sales pitch. And so once that's done and you have the player's will and you have that player's desire to play only for Madrid, that's when they act and make the move. And so I think we've done a good job there, but at some point, like, I don't know, I think it's going to be harder and harder to keep doing that. And so that's where the concern comes.
I also just want to say I am, quite frankly, a little bit less concerned about Real Madrid than I am about the league. I'm more concerned about the league as a whole. The thing is with, and that has to do in part with our competence, but not to seem too arrogant about it, because I think, like, the reality is with Real Madrid, we have Florentino Perez. He navigated this whole pandemic masterfully. He is about to renovate the stadium. It's going to be state-of-the-art. It's going to be the best stadium in the world. It already is, in my opinion, but that's biased. But it truly will be probably objectively the best stadium in the world once these renovations are finished. It's going to be a cash cow, money-making machine. We have that luxury, plus the prestige, the brand. We were able to sign Rudiger and Tchouaméni this season, etc. Vinicius will probably never leave because he's in love with the club. We have a lot of that going for us. But what I'm concerned about is when Real Betis can't pay 10 million for Ceballos and they can't register their new signings, they don't really have the same out as Real Madrid, who are a bigger club. And that's what I'm concerned about. If Real Madrid can get themselves out of this is one thing. What happens to the rest of the league, I'm not entirely sure. And the gap between the Premier League and the rest of the leagues is widening, but also the gap between Real Madrid and the rest of the teams in La Liga is also widening, and that concerns me. So I don't know what the way out is, and I hate that the only solution might be like, let's get some billionaires to buy the clubs. I don't want that to happen. Like, I don't want that to be the solution. We got to think of something different. I'm not sure what it is. Again, I think if we had thought of a solution, and by we I mean collectively as different organizations and UEFA and FIFA, I think we would have implemented that solution by now, but we haven't been able to. So I don't know what it is.